part of what we're studying right now. When you talk about the importance of grassroots level, of having access to it, but also in terms of governance, this is certainly something we are looking into, and in terms of accessibility in general. I had some meetings with even Perry Bellegarde on this even last week, but I'm very happy to be here to hear from you and to understand what would be your recommendations in developing this. We will be launching public consultations soon, so in June, so I really hope you will participate. And so you'll get more info soon, and I'll make sure that my team liaises with you in order to inform you, but to get your insight as to what are your expectations, and at the same time, you know, what could be done by the government, what could be organized at much more the grassroots level, etc. So, and we are very much aware that the importance of how can I say in French? I would say reappropriation of your own cultures and own languages, and we think that it's up to us to really bring forward a very progressive policy in order that the next 150 years actually are much more positive in that regard, and that basically there is empowerments, cultural empowerments for individuals and communities. So it will be a pleasure for me to work with you, and of course to have you know, benefit from all the knowledge and expertise of Carolyn in terms of governance also, and developing these new programs.
But I also think that what you've explained to us today is that we don't have to start from scratch if there were something that was already working, right?
Yeah,
so that, you know, CCIY now, if you know, it sounds like you like the design, and you know, and again, if you had some advice in terms of how it could be tweaked to be even better. But you know, I hear you very strongly, and I think it's around accessibility, universality, those kinds of just irritants. Like, help us with just getting the irritants out of it, such that we, you know, it would be something that, because it sounds like you want those dollars protected for youth and culture. Sort of coast to coast to coast. I mean, that this is really important that it not get folded in with other programs that then somehow you end up with less coming out the other side. So it's I think that's what I've certainly learned today, and it was it's you were you gonna say something, Crystal? You had. You got a couple of bits of advice here.
Your words were very touching.
Thank you. I just want to mention, we were actually just talking about child poverty in one of my master's courses, and it came up so that, like, why do we call it child poverty? It's not the children, it's the family that's in poverty. And so I think we just need to rethink that, and I think the best way to get First Nations families out of poverty is through culture, and to like understand that they're suffering because of past histories, because of what Canada has done or hasn't done yet. And so I think it's really great that you guys are working behind the scenes, and that maybe we're not seeing it yet, but you guys are working on it, and that's really powerful, and I'm really grateful to see that. And I'm just really hopeful for the youth, that they know what's going on, and that we move forward with this program.
And with Cindy Blackstock and with some of the other people who've been working very hard on this, that we, you know, I understand North-South Dakota, they have a policy where you cannot apprehend a child for poverty. You know, if there's if there's no food in the fridge, then we help get some food in the fridge. That's what community used to do, and it's what the chief always was able to do. But in urban settings, that breaks down, and so we've got to, I think, when we look at how we renovate a child welfare system, that this issue of children are poor because their mothers are poor, and that we actually have to really have a look at this in terms of a wraparound that you were describing, in terms of the, you know, how you wrap the supports around to keep that family intact. And even if the mom's not well, I think that we have an opportunity to find some of these ways with kinship care, community care, but on a path to helping them until the mother's well again. And so, you know, it's a different approach that I think that we're going to require as we go forward.
And I think one last thing before, you know, the Prime Minister is also the Minister of Youth. So he's very committed to empowering youth throughout the country, especially in Indigenous youth. And so clearly you have many allies around the table, but you have to understand that government takes a bit of time. We've been elected 6 months ago. We've been doing a lot since, and it's perfect to keep the pressure, but we're with you on this. So I encourage you just to make sure that we keep close contact, and that we will be better at keeping you informed of where we are in terms of, you know, our own work to make this happen.
But I think in terms of our approach, we know we're not going to get this right without your advice. And so that's why I think in this, in our approach, is that from emails to just being able to stay in touch and catch, you know, if you like the UN declaration and the comments in New York, that's great. But if you don't like something I'm doing, then it's also great for you to send an email to say, you know, because that's what friends, or that's what a relationship is, right? It's about correcting one another. And so we hope that, you know, that people will feel that we want to take the meeting. We want to be in places where people have done this kind of work and come to us with solutions. That's way easier than thinking we've got to start from scratch somewhere, and who do I talk to? So, you know, you, by presenting yourselves, you know, so eloquently, you know, become an immediate resource to us, where we actually go, oh, you know, I wonder what the Council of Mothers thinks on this as we go forward. And so that there's those sort of signal checks that we will need, you know, before we design anything, because it would be a mistake to do it without your wise counsel.
And also, like, us as a Council of Mothers, we don't just represent like a certain placement. We want to create space and hold space so that we can get those experts, we can get those grassroots people. We want to advocate bringing the power back to the communities, asking the communities on a regional level what they need, because in my neighborhood, from Commercial and Hastings, youth are going to be way different from Main and Hastings youth, and that's just blocks away. Just like it's like 10 blocks away from each other. So we see that, and we want that authentic youth voice, community voice to be heard, and bringing the power back to the people to ask them, because then once you ask them, beautiful things happen. So I'm really happy to hear that you're on that same vibration, and that we're looking forward in a good way. The numbers that I wanted to say, for CCAY it was 22 million, so there is an influx. So I was gonna say, let's CCIY to be reinstated at 44 million. Indigenous languages, we see that French is 2.4 million, and that Indigenous billion, and Indigenous languages are 5 million. So there's a huge gap. If we live in a time of reconciliation, let's split that in half and go 1.2 billion. We do realize that you can't put a number because there's, revitalization, there's prevention, and promotion, and all levels are different. There's a diverse there. But that's where I would like to start from, 1.2 billion and 44 million. So those are my suggestions and requests at this time for these two things. Those are the numbers that I would like to see. And start from there.
Speaking of languages, there is an issue of non-fluent speakers coming out of the formal education system. So that ties directly into the grassroots accessibility. Like, we're not getting formal speakers from sending them to schools. Residential school has been mentioned a few times, and I noticed that a lot of the funding that was funneled into employment programs and people are like eating it up. People are buying it. People are going and getting their tickets and getting training. But it's a lot of the same level of education that's being pushed on our young people as it's like a legacy from residential school. I just wanted to mention that because it was something that we have discussed as well.
No, and I think it's really important that you raise these issues and the fact that there's lots of people who want to help us, right? There's lots of people from all over Canada that want to help us on this journey, and so we will. But we want to make sure that that this is the first of many conversations. We are, as you know, here for only a short time this time, but we'll be back, and I look forward to meeting with you on another visit out here, and but also we're going to need your help also as the Prime Minister's trying to sort out his youth council, and that sort of nomination process that they're working on. So there's going to be lots of entry points, including probably some things in Ottawa or across the country that where we will need your advice. So
very short term, there's going to be the consultations on Indigenous languages. So I think it should be within a few weeks. So I'll make sure that kept informed.
And we're working with First Peoples, so Tracy Herbert, so very credible
That's
organization.
it.
So
exactly. So based here.